Hello, everyone. Welcome to my channel, Secret Star Soul Healing. I'm Secret Charla. And just to let you know, I've asked Spirit to fill this video with healing so that anybody who finds the video can receive healing, whether that's emotional healing, physical healing, um, spiritual healing, soul healing, that you can receive a little boost of healing if you find this video. All right, so I'm coming on today to talk about a really interesting experience I had in Japan. I got back from Japan recently, and basically it involved talking to a koi fish. And shout out to Caroline Loving Life, who is a subscriber, for giving me a heads up that I should pay attention to koi fish while I was in Japan, that there was a message for me. Now, I want to mention that, I talk to animals all the time. They don't always talk back to me. Maybe you're like me and you see a cute animal on the street and you might say, "Who's this cutie?" Or "Who's this handsome gentleman?" But I don't wait around to listen to see if they're going to answer. I talk to the birds in my backyard all the time. I apologize when I scare them. I apologize to trees or bushes if I bend or break their branches. Again, I'm not necessarily expecting some kind of reply. And what is it about baby animals that just makes us all want to make our voices super high? I see baby bunnies on the paths I walk in nature a lot right now. And I just look at them and I say, "You're so cute. I love you." So let me know if anybody else feels that way or says those kind of things in the comments. I would love to hear your experiences talking to animals. But the thing is we don't usually stick around to see if they're going to answer us, right? It doesn't really occur to us most of the time. But now, since I've been on this spiritual path, it's something I think about more. And basically, you have to learn how to listen and perceive their answer. It doesn't mean they're always going to answer you. It doesn't mean that baby bunny is always going to turn around and say, "I am cute," right? But, if you are seriously trying to communicate with animals, there are classes you can take that help with that. And I also wanted to mention one of the reasons I started this channel was to share some of my spiritual experiences on this path and to hear other people's experiences, right? Share in a safe space. And my journey that led to starting to talk to nature, including trees and animals and also nature spirits, it started with a really tough time I was going through in my life. I was really disturbed about some things going on in the country. I'm still disturbed about some things going on in the country. And I started falling into despair. And I made a decision that for one summer, I was going to believe that anything was possible. Now, a little background, growing up through my life, I have perceived spirit off and on throughout my life. But, the messages you get from society is that's your imagination or you're crazy or whatever. It's an imaginary friend you were talking to, not a spirit, those kinds of things. So those were the messages I learned. And then once I started studying science, same thing. I was telling myself the same thing. Well, you don't have any evidence that there's a spirit over there. Yes, you're perceiving an old woman in the corner of the apartment that you're deciding if you want to rent, but you can't prove it. No one's going to believe you. They're going to think you're crazy. So I learned to just kind of push down those experiences. But there was always a part of me that it didn't ring true when I would say, "Oh, it's probably my imagination." A part of me would always say, "No, it's not. It's not." Right. But again, being a science teacher, having a science background, I pretty much every once in a while I might tell a close friend about an experience, but then I would always end it with, "But it was probably my imagination," right? I can't prove it. So I just decided that for a summer I was going to believe anything was possible. And folks, the world opened up in a way to me that I did not expect. It was like I stepped from the black and white Wizard of Oz at the beginning and stepped into a technicolor world. Whoa. I mean, I'm already amazed at the world from a science perspective, biology. I love learning about anything. I teach biology, I teach physics. And so I love anything that has to do with life, how life works, how the planet works, the solar system, anything, really, anything you do with science. I'll find a way to geek out about it. I love science. So I already feel a tremendous sense of wonder about the world, about the universe. But then along comes this spirit layer things going on that I couldn't even imagine. And it started with taking a class where, again, I was trying to get evidence. I love watching ghost shows, and I love it when they bring out their machinery, their tools to try to record spirit. Like, okay, the spirit, this device went off at the same time that the medium was connecting, and we did research on the building and what the medium is getting really happened. So I love those shows because I want evidence, right? That's my training. And so then I started with a class where I was trying to learn how to speak with spirit in terms of symbols, like how does spirit let you know they're around? How do passed over loved ones show you that they're looking out for you? Right? So you things like feathers or coins or whatever, you can work it out with spirit what you'd like them to show you when they're around. So I was learning about this, but I didn't realize that it was also a mediumship class. So to my surprise, while I was taking my notes about how to start a dictionary of symbols, how to ask spirit to send me symbols, suddenly I'm in a breakout room with somebody and I'm expected to connect with one of their loved ones and give messages. And I part of me wanted to just run away and get out of that Zoom meeting, and a lot of people did that. Actually, a lot of people felt that way and they ran away like, wait, that's not what I signed up for, that's not what I thought this class was. But I reminded myself that I was going to believe anything was possible, and so I gave it a shot, and to my surprise I saw a spirit appear behind the person sitting across from me on Zoom. And I described the spirit and was getting information about this person. They knew who it was. I was right about the information. And then suddenly this light bulb goes off, like, oh, is this a thing I can do? I can talk to spirits. Like, I've seen some from time to time or felt them around. I love shows about mediums, but I never thought I could be a medium. And then suddenly I realized maybe I could be a medium. And really, anybody worth their salt will say anybody can become a medium. And it's true. You just need to, first of all, you have to believe it's possible and then get some training. And some people are natural born mediums right away. They're able to communicate with spirit, perceive spirit really well. For the rest of us, it might take a bit of training, but it's like anything else. Like my friend is an artist. She's been able to draw from just looking at something, right? She just looks at it and draws it. And she just thought everybody could do that. And I'm like, no, I can't do that. I don't, it's a 3D object. This is a flat piece of paper. I end up with stick figures, a stick figure horse, a stick figure human. I do not know how to just look at something and draw it, right? So some people have natural talent and they get better when they take classes, right? And when they practice. So it's the same thing with mediumship. And so I'm currently practicing mediumship. And what I loved about it, as I took more classes and I have a mentor now as well, it's the style of mediumship, or the kind of mediumship is called evidential mediumship. And so the medium is expected to present evidence that they are connecting with the person's loved one that they're sitting across from. And until I and the person I'm across from feel confident that we're talking to somebody they know, I don't want to deliver a message. Why should you believe anything I say that your loved one's saying if you don't know that I'm really connecting with them, right? And so I love that. I'm like, wait, I can get evidence. Wait, I can somehow combine science and spirituality. I love it. And so that's what I've been doing. And so I was gaining more confidence and more evidence because I've been, dozens and dozens of times sitting across from someone and they're, yep, you're right about that. That's my dad's favorite song. That's his favorite hobby. That's his personality. That's how he passed. Over and over, I've got confirmation that what I'm experiencing, I'm seeing a mix of images, words, feelings, smells, sometimes tastes. All those kind of things are building a picture that I'm presenting. So once I had that confidence, wait, I can perceive spirit, I started going out into the world trying to perceive spirit. And so for anybody that wants to try this, what I did is I just imagined all my senses extending outwards from my body like a spider web. And then if something, a spirit of some kind, disturbs my web, right? I feel it. I turn towards that, like, what's that? And then I start to see an image materialize. Now I thought when I went out in the world to do that, I was doing it as practice. It's a kind of like I get in a meditative state. I'll do walking meditations through nature. I just expected I was going to run into human spirits, lost spirits or spirits passing through. And I was like, well, I want to practice more. I'm trying to learn the best I can how to communicate with spirits. So this is a way to practice. Lo and behold, nature spirits started showing up. I didn't even know nature spirits were real. So, I'm seeing a water spirit over here, some an earth elemental over here. And I checked in with others in the community, spiritual community that knew about these kinds of spirits. And they're like, oh, yeah, nature spirits. Yeah, sure. They're real. I run into those all the time, kind of thing. And oh, wait, no one told me. I didn't know that was even real or a possibility. So if I'd gone the other way, if I hadn't like studied science and then did evidential mediumship, I might have still been walking around thinking that must be my imagination, right? But now I had confidence. Like I speak to them the same way as I speak to a human spirit. They show up and the way they materialize is the same way a human spirit materializes. So that's what gave me confidence that it wasn't my imagination. And then the other thing I learned is that if really once you learn how to talk to spirit, whether it's a spirit that's past or a spirit that is within a form, it's all spirit. So I started realizing I could talk to tree spirits, for example, get messages from tree spirits. And during some of my mediumship readings, animals showed up that had passed. But actually, it's really the same thing talking to animals that are in their bodies versus spirit because we're all spirit. And sometimes when I'm getting information, I actually see the spirit of a living person. Like if I'm asked by, let's say, this is an example, I was asked to tell a mom about their son who was living, and then I saw that spirit appear in front of me and I started describing their interests, what they're like, what they look like, and all those things were correct. So I was somehow connecting with the spirit of a living person. So I'm learning a lot. It's all spirit. If you can talk to one kind of spirit, you can talk to all the kinds of spirits. Sometimes it feels a little bit different, but it's generally very similar. So that's the background to the story about talking to this koi fish. So again, a subscriber, Carolyn Loving Life, told me, hey, pay attention to koi fish. So when I got to Japan, I was with a group, so I couldn't do whatever I wanted. And so I would try to sneak away, and just spend a few minutes trying to tune into spirit while I was in Japan. And so the first koi fish pond we came to, I was really trying to tune in, like, oh, does a koi fish have a message for me? And I didn't really get much. I got a little bit, and I thought, okay, I guess this is just a personal message for me. And I was surprised because for me nowadays, since I've started this channel, when I get messages from trees or animals in this case, or nature spirits, it feels like a message I'm supposed to share with others. That's part of the reason I felt compelled to start this channel. These are universal messages that I think it's good for everyone to hear. And what I was getting from this, collection of koi fish in this pond, I really wasn't getting anything that felt like that, like felt like something that should be shared with everyone. So I just thought, oh, okay, I guess it was just a personal message for me. Okay. Well, I came across one more koi fish pond on that journey, and I wasn't necessarily expecting to get any kind of answer. I kind of thought I'd already done that, already gotten a personal message. So, but I did notice in this particular pond, the pond was a lot smaller than the one I saw before. And in particular, I was drawn to this koi fish that was white with some gold highlights because it stood out. All the rest of the koi fish were actually dark. I could see them like sliding over the top of it. And whereas the other koi fish pond I'd been to, there were many colors. There's kind of like a red color or more like an orange gold and spotted fish and all kinds. But there was one of this unique kind in the pond, and all the rest of them just seemed like a darker color. And so I felt bad looking at this koi fish in this small pond. And so I just expressed that in my mind. I just said, oh, I'm so sorry because there's people around. So I didn't necessarily want people seeing me talking to a fish. They might have thought I was a weirdo. I said, in my mind, I said, I'm so sorry that you're stuck in this tiny pond, and just was kind of sending these feelings of just feeling bad for this koi fish. But I really wasn't expecting an answer in return. Like I said, I talk to animals all the time. I don't necessarily expect them to be talking back to me. And I thought I'd already gotten my message earlier. But to my surprise, I felt instantly this feeling of contentment coming from the fish. And the fish just started saying to me, it's good. I have protection. I feel safe. And then I got an image of a hawk. And so I got from that, there occasionally they have to hide, but most of the time they feel safe and secure. And then the fish was telling me I get plenty of food. Actually, people can buy the fish food and feed the fish, special fish food. And then humans come by and keep life interesting. And then I also saw that, of course, the fish also had companionship. And so it really surprised me that there was this feeling of like, no, I've got it good. And it really made me think, I'm like, oh, I wasn't really fully appreciating the positives that this fish is experiencing, the safety, the protection, the companionship, the plenty to eat, life is interesting, humans come by, entertainment, right? And then that made me think, how often do we not think about those kinds of factors in our lives that help us feel content, you know, that help us have a foundation so we can dream big, right? What a blessing it is, however you want to think of it, to have a roof over your head, have shelter, have protection, to feel safe in your home. Not everyone has those kinds of things. Not everyone has a roof over their heads. Not everyone feels safe at home. Plenty to eat. Not everyone has that. Companionship, people that are supportive of us. Um, and also something to keep life interesting, right? We're at our fingertips. We have phones, computers, Netflix, whatever, aside from all our other possible activities we could be doing with our lives, right? And I just think that it's that not a lot of us always remember to appreciate those things. And it's okay to feel content with those things. It's okay not to want to strive for more money, a bigger house, a better car, right? It's okay to feel content with what you have and appreciate what you have. And a lot of people do. And it's interesting in this American society that people sometimes feel like they have to apologize for being happy with what they have, right? I see this in real life. I also see it on TV and movies where somehow the better person's the one that's always striving for to get the better job, right? To get the promotion, the bigger house, the better car, right? Live in the better neighborhood, being able to buy a boat, like all those things. Like you've made it. Someday you'll be happy when you have all those things. Well, some people have figured out just having the basics covered, they're perfectly happy and content. And that's amazing. It's a really peaceful feeling if you can feel that way, right? And it's okay if you don't. It's okay if you like a challenge. If you want to dream big, it's okay to want more. But I would say, let's remember to appreciate our foundation. Like if you didn't have that foundation, if you're looking for where your next meal is going to come from, then you maybe aren't dreaming about buying a yacht or traveling the world. You're dreaming about when you can get your belly full again, right? So that was the message I felt I should share. Just it's okay to feel contentment and not to feel like you want to be in that rat race anymore. And it's also okay to dream big and to challenge yourself. Some people love striving, and if that's what makes you happy, of course, go for it. But I just want to point out it doesn't make you any better than somebody who's content with what they have. And also, it's a bit of a travesty that even people who are in retirement, right, who've already done all their striving, still, I feel like there's an expectation that, like, oh, well, now that you're retired, you should still be doing something. Like, you still should be golfing whenever you can, or traveling the world, or getting in your RV and driving across America, or you should be volunteering at the local shelter, at the local church, whatever. And if somebody just says, I just want to stay home and tinker in my garden, or with my projects and spend time with my cats, like I just want to sit and be content, be peaceful, that somehow that's not okay. And so I just feel like that's a bit of a travesty. Like these people have already worked hard in their life. And also how hard you work is not does not have to be tied to whether you're worthy as a person. Some people contribute in other ways. And, when you think about it, somebody staying at home, not going out into the world, if that's what makes them happy, is contributing, right? Oh, you're not going to the store and burning gas to pollute the environment to get to the store. Awesome. Also, I don't have to be as crowded when I go to the store because there's less people. Awesome. Right? So and it doesn't matter. They don't have to be doing anything. It really made me think today. I really pondered hard about this before I made this video. Who told us that? Where did we get that message from? That you have to constantly be contributing to society or you're somehow not worthy as a member of the society, right? And my personal theory, it came from big business. It came from rich folk, right? Who are like, workers, if you don't work until you drop, till you have a heart attack, you're not worthy somehow, right? And who's benefiting from that? The people at the top, right? So I don't know. That's kind of my conclusion. If you have a different conclusion or a different opinion, I'd love it if you would talk about it in the comments and share your opinion on that. And if you've ever felt guilty because you are just content with your life, if you were ever embarrassed that you're like, I'm happy, I'm peaceful, I'm content. Why do people seem to think I have to keep, running in the rat race, right? So I would love to hear your comments and your ideas about that. And maybe where the whole idea came from that you have to strive, 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 um, or you're somehow not worthy. So I'd love to hear your ideas about that. So in any case, I'm going to go ahead and open the reading and see what else Spirit wants us to know. In addition to the message that the koi fish gave about really having some gratitude for and appreciation for what you have, and, you know, remembering that it's okay if you're happy with your life how it is. You don't have to strive and strive and strive and strive till you drop. Okay, so first I'm gonna do some purification of the cards and the crystals and the space. And I will let you know what decks I'm using in case you're interested. I've got some couple Japanese themed decks I wanted to use, especially since I was talking about Japan. And like, okay, so what does Spirit want us to know in addition to this koi fish's message about really how to be happy and content with what you have, or just using that as a basis to dream big? All right. So the first deck I'm going to use is called the Yokai Oracle deck. So I'm going to use this as the opening deck. It's Japanese themed. Yokai really are a kind of Japanese spirit. So the Japanese Shinto belief is that everything has a spirit, including inanimate objects, including rocks. So I have not yet tried to talk to a rock. I've been told everything has some kind of a spirit. So eventually I will try communicating with the rock. It's on the list. I'm still working on animal communication and communicating with nature spirits like elementals. So still working on that, and human spirits. Someday I'll see what happens when I try to talk to a rock. But in any case, the Shinto religion, and this is a gate right here to a Shinto shrine, is that everything, has a spirit, like mountains and just rocks and the river and streams and animals and plants, and everything has a spirit. So I thought it was a fitting deck to use since we were just talking about Japan and the koi fish. And I also perceived some other nature spirits and talked to some other spirits while I was in Japan. So perhaps in a future video, I will talk about that. It was definitely when I could find a moment of quiet away from the crowds, some interesting occurrences happened. So I'd like to share some of those at some point. Okay. All right, Spirit. What could you add? Or koi fish. If koi fish wants to come in and add to the message, whoever wants to add to this message or tell us something in addition, please let us know. Okay. So this is the card that's called Tanuki. Oh, I love Tanuki, raccoon dogs. One of my good friends who went with me to Japan last time loved the Tanuki, raccoon dogs. They're super cute. Okay. This says playfulness, gratitude, lightheartedness. Okay, I love that. So the gratitude is coming up in this card as well. There they are. Yeah, it's a little bit hard to see, but those are the Tanuki, right? And so again, the message I was just discussing was having gratitude for things that we forget to have gratitude for. Maybe it feels like it's small potatoes, but really that's the foundation of contentment, of happiness. Having a strong foundation allows us to dream big if we want to, or just to settle down, settle into it. When I was younger, I thought I had to go out into the world as much as possible, right? I needed to experience everything, even sometimes not so pleasant things. I just thought, well, it's part of life. I'm going to experience what that's like, right? So I used to just say, nothing can happen to me if I stay home. Now that I'm tapping into the spirit world, lots can happen to me when I stay home. But in any case, I am very happy and content to spend full weekends or more on my own at my place with my cats, hanging out in my yard, reading books, learning more about tarot cards, talking to spirit, whatever. Perfectly happy and content. And it puts me in an amazing mood. So just, appreciating what you have and appreciating how wonderful contentment feels. And then the other message talking about playfulness, right? So how do you make life fun? Add a little playfulness to the way you see the world and to the way you interact with the world. And then the other part of the message was lightheartedness. So again, find what helps lift your heart. And that makes life enjoyable, worth living, right? Oh, Tanuki, so cute. These spirits, the spirit of the Tanuki. A lot of businesses will have little statues of Tanuki looking really jolly, in front of drinking establishments or eating establishments, just kind of like this is a welcome spirit. Come and fill your belly, come and have a drink and relax. So that's kind of this what the spirit represents. So that's I love that I pulled that. I'm gonna have to tell my good friend that I pulled that card. Okay, so next I'm gonna use a deck that's a tarot deck and it's called Rete Kina Tabi. Rete Kina Tabi. So I ordered this online and it's a really cool deck. And it's got koi fish on the back. So I just thought, well, this is the perfect deck to use, having spoken to koi fish while I was in Japan. And by the way, I'm still in training for all these areas. I mean, you talk to anybody on the spiritual path, they'll tell you you're never done learning, so I'm still always taking classes, practicing to get better. I'm always striving to improve. And because I enjoy it, not because I feel like it's a rat race. And if I'm not involved in that, then somehow I'm less than or I'm going to be judged. I mean, with social media nowadays, trying to keep up with the Joneses has become a lot worse. Maybe you used to try to keep up with your neighbors. Now it's keeping up with your 200 or 300 friends you have on Facebook or Instagram. Oh, they went on a vacation to some exotic place, some Europe or some other place, right? Well, I just want to go sit on my boat in the middle of the lake over by my house. That's what would make me happy. But no, now I need to spend a bunch of money on a trip, take lots of pictures so it looks like my life is as exciting as other people's. Otherwise, I'll be judged, right? This is a terrible state of affairs, right? If going out on the lake, fishing, the lake that's just right by your house, fishing, and then coming home and grilling your fish is what really makes you happy, then do that, right? All right. So, Spirit, what should we be thinking about right now? Uh, what else can you add to this message of the koi fish? That's something else we could be thinking about. Okay. Oh, very interesting. So I got the strength card. And what's interesting about the strength card is that it almost means opposite to strength in some ways. So the strength card, it really has to do with a gentle kind of strength, knowing when to approach a situation with gentleness, right? So in the traditional Rider-Waite deck, it's a woman having tamed a tiger and not from whipping it or chaining it or torturing it in some way until it complied with what she wanted. She used love and tenderness and care in order to tame this tiger or make friends with this tiger. Sorry, lion. Make friends with the lion. So in this particular case, I would say that it takes a certain kind of inner strength to be able to push back on that idea that you have to always want more, 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 always want that promotion, the bigger house, the more expensive car. To me, it shows an inner strength if you can look inside yourself, figure out what makes you happy, and ignore the noise, right? Ignore what you see on social media. Ignore that your friends bragging about some amazing trip they're on. Just be happy for them, Your pictures are amazing. Looks like a wonderful time. I'm glad you had fun, right? Don't worry about people judging that that's not for you. Do what makes you happy and be happy for other people, right? And so I think it takes a certain kind of inner strength not to feel like you have to keep up with the Joneses and not to feel like you have to compete with everybody on your Instagram or your Facebook and that you'll be judged. Do those people really matter? Okay, that was a nice beginning. All right, let's move on. I hope this is better. Trying to figure out what looks better on. It's difficult with the lighting. Okay. get another card from this Japanese deck. Oh, okay, I guess that card won't come out. All right, so this one is Page of Wands. Hmm. So pages are messengers. Pages are messengers. Isn't this a cool deck? Look at this little kid dressed up in a Japanese outfit, right? So a couple things. Now, wands are about passion, projects, that kind of thing. And pages are messengers. So this really has me thinking a little bit again about Facebook, right? Like somebody talking about how amazing their trip was. And, you know, not everybody is on Facebook sharing those kind of photos because they're trying to brag or because they're trying to pretend they're better than other people. Okay, sometimes friends and family really want to see what you've been up to. That's how I feel. I love it when my friends post about their trips, right? For one thing, it gives me ideas of where I want to go, and then I'll quiz them later. What was your favorite part about blah blah blah? Oh, that sounds amazing. Sometimes I have no interest in going where they went, but I still am happy for them. I see they're having an amazing time. I want to hear their stories. So, it doesn't have to always be that people are sending out their photos or sharing their photos because they're trying to brag. A lot of times your friends really do want to know how it's going, right? So I think that's something to be aware of. People are passionate about their projects and they want to share that with other people. And as their friends, we can be happy for them and we can enjoy the progress they're making on building their house or re refinishing the floors or reconstructing an old car, whatever, like I get excited for my friends when they're excited, right? So hopefully that's you too. You don't have to take it as they're just trying to brag and pretend their life is more perfect than everybody else's. Some people are like that, but not everyone, right? Not everyone. So I would say try to think of it in a positive fashion. And again, try, if you feel like they're judging you a little bit when they're sharing their stories, just be straight with them and just say, your trip looked amazing. I'm so happy for you. But like I said, like I really was happy staying home and getting my garden in. And now we're having a picnic in my backyard and we're eating the food from my garden. And that's satisfying and makes me happy and relaxed. And it was fun. And, don't feel like you have to brag or to out out travel somebody else, right? Okay, let's see if we can get another card. I'm just having all these happy thoughts about I have friends that like to travel and it's just really fun to see the places they go. And it doesn't make me feel bad. Maybe when I was younger, I was more worried about that. I don't know, it just feels like when you get older, I guess not everybody gets wiser, but there's a lot less I care about in terms of comparing myself to other people. Now it's a lot easier for me to just be happy for them and happy for me. Okay. So this card looks like it's cups. It's in Japanese, so I'm trying to read it right now. This looks like, okay, it's the Six of Cups. Okay, sorry. It's in Japanese, so I had to look at the picture and kind of decipher. I can read Japanese, but I'm a little bit rusty. So that's the Six of Cups. And so the Six of Cups, there's a couple of meanings of the Six of Cups. The Six of Cups can be uh, about nostalgia, about thinking of a happier time when you were a kid. And it can also be about intergenerational relationships. So it's making me think about, when we were younger, these were not things we had to worry about as much, right? Like somebody might have a photo album they show you of their trip, or they bring you over and they show you the car they just rebuilt, whatever. These just weren't things we had to worry so much about. Like the whole social media thing has really changed the landscape, I think, of human interaction. And in the good old days, we just looked at a photo album or we just looked at somebody's slideshow if somebody could afford to have like, you know, a projector or whatever, we might watch somebody's slideshow or something like that. And nowadays, it's just constantly in your face. So I guess if you can just find a way again to appreciate that they're having a good time and think more back to when we were younger and just maybe what our feelings were about people's vacations or new house or new car. We were just maybe happy for them, you know. Yeah, there was still some of that culture of keeping up with the Joneses, but um, I think a lot of times people could just appreciate that somebody else had something good come into their life. So let's kind of remember those days before social media kind of tainted things and made it seem like, oh, we have to always want more. Look at all these people on Instagram and Facebook that are buying things. We have to buy more or we won't be happy, you know. It's just, you know, there was always some of that in advertising, but you know, there only used to be a few channels, right? And some billboards, and now it's just constantly thrown at us. So I think just remember the simple life, you know, and what made us happy when we were kids. It was pretty basic what made us happy when we were kids, right? Again, it's kind of like with the koi fish, full belly, getting to do something fun with our friends, companionship, feeling safe in our home, protected by our parents. So those things, just think of the feelings of happiness and how simple it was to feel happy as a child. I hope everybody had some happy times. I know lots of people out there, myself included, there can be traumatic things from your childhood as well. But since we're trying to keep things positive, let's think about the good times and how happy it was to feel, or sorry, how easy it was to feel content and feel happy as a child and get back to that state of mind instead of like adults. You know, things change when we become an adult, right? But I think let's get in touch with our inner child and remember what used to make us happy. Let's think about those things. Let's cultivate that. Let's get off social media and get together with our friends and play board games. Have a barbecue. All right. I'm gonna close the reading with a card. Let me show you the deck, the box for the deck. It's called the Healing Oracle. And I really like a lot of cards. This is by Rebecca Campbell. I have several of her Oracle decks. So I chose waters because we were talking about koi fish. I'm trying to keep a Japan theme, a koi fish theme. Koi fish live in ponds. It's water. Okay. So what can we close this reading? What is something we can be thinking about, you know, in relation to what the koi fish had to say, um, or anything else that Spirit wants us to walk away from the reading thinking about? Again, I want to thank people who stopped by the channel. I want to thank people who subscribed or hit the like button or left comments. I really appreciate it. I get so excited when there's a comment. I can't wait to read it and see what people have to say and reply back. Like it's a lot of fun for me. Okay, so Spirit, what's the closing message you would like us to walk away from this reading? Okay, this one's sticking out. Okay, so this says Isle of Avalon. I don't know if anyone who's listening to this has ever read the King Arthur stories, and or there's also some books out there, The Mists of Avalon. That's what this is making me think of. Um, you know, earlier when I said that suddenly the world seemed Technicolor once I started tapping into the spirit world, well, stories from my childhood about nature spirits. I loved reading fantasy stories. I loved reading the myths and legends from all over the world. But as I got older, you know, that's all those were to me. Those are fantasy stories. Those aren't real. You know, what's real is science and facts and right. And so rediscovering the world of spirit with this new spiritual journey I'm on, suddenly it feels like this childhood sense of wonder for what might be out there in nature. Now I've spoken to nature spirits, right? I'm like, wait, you can talk to animals? You really can talk to trees? You really can talk to nature spirits? What? I thought that was just in fantasy books. That was just in fairy tales, right? And now this whole world has opened up for me. And again, I think anybody can learn how to do this. If you're interested in learning to talk to passed over loved ones, nature spirits, trees, animals, just first of all, you have to suspend disbelief. I guess you could say that's what you say when you read a book or watch a movie where they're living in some kind of alternate reality or some technology that's way beyond what we're capable of. We have to just believe that's possible, right? So we could get into the story. First, you have to believe it's possible. And that's what I did. I pretty much suspended my disbelief for that summer. It doesn't mean I forgot how to be logical or discerning or forgot my scientific training, but I just wanted to be as open as possible to let new experiences come in. And it doesn't mean that I believe everything all the time now, but that was how I opened myself up and allowed the experiences to come in by just accepting, you know, I'm just going to choose to believe anything's possible, right? And once I did that, the whole world opened up to me in a new way, like I said. And suddenly it felt like I was back in childhood, realizing what was that I thought was just in books was real. So, anyway, let me continue reading this. So it says, Isle of Avalon. It says, healing, returning to wholeness. So, oh, healing, returning to wholeness, transformation. And then this like beautiful image of floating to Avalon. Um, yeah, sorry, I love these cards, but it's really hard to show the words on camera. I'm just going to put it here. Maybe you can zoom in and see what they are. But it really made me think just now about the conversation I was just having. There was, I feel like I wasn't living my full life in a way. I was letting my left brain be in charge of everything, right? I wasn't fully experiencing life in a fulfilling way. Part of my life was fulfilled with the science and my career in regards to science. But there was a part of me, the part that wanted to dream and wonder, that was being tamped down, you know? And so for me, the koi fish story reminds me, or the conversation with the koi fish reminds me of how I got to a place of security, right? Where I know where my next meal is coming from, that kind of thing. And because of that, it allowed me to open up to this other world, the spiritual world, because I had a nice, steady, stable life, right? So that's allowing me to explore this other side of life, right? And in a way, it does feel like I'm healing this inner child that had been told, I was told my whole life that my spiritual experiences were my imagination, right? And now with evidential mediumship, over and over, I'm getting evidence. It's not my imagination. I'm connecting with spirit. I'm bringing forth facts and evidence to my sitters. And so it just feels like I'm becoming more of a whole person and healing. So maybe you're on your spiritual journey right now, or you're searching for something that's going to help you feel like a whole person. So I would say start considering maybe where you feel like your life is letting you down in some way. Where do you feel like life is gray? What do you need to make life feel like it's in Technicolor, right? All right, and then also the rest of this message, returning to wholeness and transformation. So I also think it can be a transformative idea to just remember that you don't have to keep up with other people, right? Transform your thinking about that. What makes you happy? And this has come up in some of my other readings, so I feel like this is a message Spirit's really trying to get out there. What makes you happy, not what makes other people happy. So transform your point of view and stop comparing yourself to other people on social media and just do what makes you happy. And so that's what I'm going to close the reading with. Again, thanks everybody for stopping by. I would love it if there's anything that resonated, if you would tell me what resonated with you in the comments, or if there's anything about this reading you liked, if you'd hit the like button and subscribe if you find this kind of content interesting, if you want to get more messages from Spirit, hear what Spirit has to say. The next video that I want to have come out is going to have to do with um, a communication I had with a guardian spirit of an ice cave I went into when I was in Japan. And just, it was another message that felt universal. And I want to share that with folks. It amazes me that just getting back to the basics sometimes can be so profound. And that's kind of what, oh, just knocking my cards off. That's the kind of messages I feel like I've been continuously getting. It's like, let's just hone it all down to the basics and remember to be thankful for what we have. In any case, thanks again for stopping by. I'll see you next time.